The train station was a place of constant motion, commuters rushing past, the metallic hum of trains arriving and departing, and the faint echo of announcements crackling overhead. Yet amidst the chaos, Claire always noticed him. An elderly man, seated on the same bench each morning, holding a single red rose. He was quiet and unassuming, yet the rose seemed to hold a story larger than the bustling station around him. Every morning she wondered, who was he waiting for? Claire began timing her commute to coincide with his presence. She sat nearby, pretending to read, her eyes drawn to the rose in his hands. Its petals, always fresh and vibrant, seemed untouched by the wear of time. She imagined his life, a man waiting for a lost love, the rose a silent tribute to someone who had gone. But she didn't dare ask. Something about him seemed too sacred to disturb. Then one rainy morning, the bench was empty. The sight of that vacant spot struck her more deeply than she expected. Days passed, and still, he didn't return. The absence of the man with the red rose left an ache she couldn't ignore. Determined to find him, Claire began her search. She visited the florist across from the station. The shopkeeper smiled sadly when she described him. "That man loved roses," she said. "He came here every morning for one. Always said it was for his wife. I haven't seen him in weeks." With the florist's help, Claire found his address, a modest apartment building in a quiet part of town. When she knocked on the door, no one answered. A neighbor passing by stopped to explain, her voice low with concern. "He's in the hospital," she said. "Had a fall recently. Such a sweet man. I hope he's okay." At the hospital, Claire found him in a small, quiet room. He looked frail, his hands resting lightly on the blanket. But when his eyes met hers, recognition sparked, and his face softened into a faint smile. "You found me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Claire sat beside him, her heart heavy yet grateful to see him again. She listened as he shared his story. His wife, Eleanor, had been his greatest love. They took the train together every weekend, exploring the countryside and small towns she adored. After she passed, he kept the ritual alive. "She loved roses," he said softly. "I always brought her one. Even now, I feel like she's with me when I do." Claire stayed with him for hours, soaking in the warmth of his memories. But as the days passed, it became clear that his time was slipping away. One morning, when Claire arrived at the hospital, his room was empty. A nurse approached her, handing her a small envelope. Inside, a note in delicate handwriting read, "Dear Claire, thank you for reminding me of life's beauty when I had almost forgotten. The roses you brought meant more than you'll ever know. Please take one last rose to the bench for Eleanor. She'll know it's from me. With love, Whitaker." Tears welled in her eyes as she held the letter. That morning, Claire carried a single red rose to the station. She placed it gently on the bench where he had once sat, feeling the weight of his story in her heart. From that day on, Claire continued his ritual. Each morning, she placed a rose on the bench, not just for Eleanor, but for the man who had shown her the enduring power of love and memory. Over time, commuters began to notice the roses, the quiet tribute catching their attention. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the rush of life, love could linger, unchanged by time.